One thing you'll learn if you go to the Disney parks on both coasts in the US, Disneyland is definitely better than Walt Disney World. I've been blessed in that I got to grow up going to Disneyland several times over the course of my life, and then I got to work at Walt Disney World. And people ask all the time, which is better? Well, it's obvious that Disneyland is. Here's 8 reasons why, if I had to pick, I'd take Disneyland over Walt Disney World any day. Number 1, Pirates of the Caribbean. At Disneyland, it is almost twice as long as the one at Walt Disney World. Yes, the one at Walt Disney World has a slightly better queue, okay, a lot better queue, with the fort, but the ride itself is so much better at Disneyland. It's organized a bit better. You've got the whole Blue Bayou opening, which is gorgeous. You've got far more in the caves where the skeletons are, and just more story overall. It's just a much longer, much better ride, and at Walt Disney World, it was an afterthought. They weren't even going to put it in there till people complained. So Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland, far better than the Walt Disney World version. Number 2, It's a Small World. Okay, this is a ride you either love or hate, but you have to admit, when you walk by the one at Disneyland and you walk by the one at Walt Disney World, the one at Walt Disney World looks pitiful. It's a terrible looking queue compared to the one at Disneyland. It's so much bigger and brighter. The clock is so much cooler at Disneyland. There's so much more activity around it. And being able to load and board outside, it's gorgeous. They did learn their lesson though. If you look at the Disneyland Paris version, it looks a lot more like Disneyland's than Walt Disney World's. There's a good reason for that. And then the ride itself is actually longer at Disneyland. I know some people complain, but I loved having the Disney characters added in. It made for a fun game of kind of hide and seek. Where are they? What can you find? Let's just face it, it's better at Disneyland. Number 3, all the rides that are at Disneyland that don't exist in Florida. If you go on a park-by-park basis, Disneyland blows away any 2 Walt Disney World parks. There's so much in it, and so many rides that don't exist in Florida at all. If you even look at just the classic Disney dark rides, you still have Snow White's Scary Adventure. You still have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. You have Pinocchio. You have Alice in Wonderland. You've got one of my favorites in the Storybook Land, Canal Boats. I love that ride. It's just gorgeous. Which they realized they were missing in Florida and put it in Paris again. Not quite the same, but very similar. You've got the Casey Jr. train. You've got the very first tubular steel roller coaster in the world in the Matterhorn. The subs are still at Disneyland. There's just so much there still that doesn't exist in Florida. You can take any 2 Walt Disney World parks, put them together, and you're still not matching Disneyland for how many rides and attractions there are. Disneyland knocks the socks off of Walt Disney World in that way. Number 4, Radiator Springs Racers. I like the old version of Test Track at Epcot. The new one, it's okay. If you've never been on it before, it'll be cool. But then Disney took that ride system, pumped it up, put in dueling tracks where you get to race with others, themed it like crazy, and oh my goodness, Radiator Springs Racers is one of the coolest rides I've ever been on. And it's only in California. It is an amazing ride, where you feel like you're riding out among the arroyos and on Route 66 and experiencing cars, and just absolutely fantastic. And Walt Disney World has nothing that compares to it. Test Track, it ain't even a close deal. That and Test Track has all those problems when it rains, which it does every day in Florida. I'll take Radiator Springs Racers. Indiana Jones. Disneyland put in Dinosaur, which is cool, but if once you've been on the original Indiana Jones, oh my goodness. Our last trip when we had friends from Florida and they went on Indiana Jones after being very familiar with Dinosaur, we kept going back to Indy over and over again because they loved it so much. So much better than Florida's. Number 5, everything is within walking distance. This is one of those things that if you're a Walt Disney World local, you think it's great having everything spread out, but it was amazing to be able to walk out of our hotel, cross the street, and immediately be able to walk into either Disneyland or California Adventure, or just a little further and you're at downtown Disney. It was literally a 5-minute walk. It was a shorter walk from our hotel to the park entrances than it is from park entrances to bus stops at some of the Walt Disney World parks. It's that close together. And it was so wonderful. It meant more sleeping time, shorter trips back and forth to the hotel, so if you wanted to eat in your room, you could. It just made everything so much more convenient. If we wanted to split up, we weren't that far apart. My daughter slept in a couple days. It was easy for her to be able to walk up and join us in the parks. It didn't take her very long to get there. Having everything close is wonderful. You want to leave the park and go eat at a restaurant outside or in downtown Disney? It's a walk. It's not a walk to the bus or the monorail, take the long transportation trip, get off, and have to plan 30 minutes to an hour just to get to where you're going to go. 5 minutes and you're there. Amazing. Love everything close together. Number 6, Max Pass versus Fast Pass Plus. I've done a whole video on this. Max Pass blows the snot out of Fast Pass Plus. Fast Pass Plus took a good Fast Pass system and messed it up. Max Pass has it right. There's a couple rides that they don't have the loading percentages quite right on, such as Radiator Springs Racers, but most of them, they've got it down where you can't get them until you get in the park, so everybody has a chance at them. They keep the numbers down enough so it doesn't kill your standby lines. It's easy to use, it's simple to understand, it doesn't jack over the people who can't book 2 months ahead of time. It was wonderful. Absolutely love Max Pass. And then you throw in your PhotoPass pictures on top of it. Good deal. Yes, they're raising the prices up to $20 each, but I still think it's worth it. If you want to know more, check out my video on Max Pass versus Fast Pass Plus, but Max Pass is an easy winner here. Please, Disney, fix Florida's system. Go to something like Max Pass. Number 7. Fantasmic. Yes, both coasts have Fantasmic. They actually built a whole theater down in Florida at the Hollywood Studios for it, which is really nice. But when you actually get to see both shows and see them up close, they're different in so many ways. There's something just wonderful about sitting around the rivers of America. Yes, you don't have chairs or benches to sit on. You gotta sit on the ground. But you know what? The show is so much better. It's worth it. The atmosphere is amazing. The dragon is so much cooler in California. Steamship that comes around is so much bigger and better. And then you've got the whole pirate scene. Okay, yes, I do miss the Peter Pan Captain Hook bit, but Pirates of the Caribbean is still so much better than... I'm sorry, the whole Pocahontas scene sucks, okay?
What a dream.
Get rid of that, put in Pirates. The California version of Fantasmic absolutely blows away the Florida version. Florida's cool, it is still my favorite show down in Florida, easy, but when you've seen the California one, oh, that's good. Number 8, Walts Touch. Disneyland is still quintessentially Walt Disney's park. He's the one who had his hand on so much of it, who designed it. It's smaller and intimate, and it feels like Walt. Everywhere you walk, you can actually know that you are going someplace that Walt walked. In fact, they've got a whole tour that says Walking in Walt's Footsteps, which I would have loved to take because it shows you where his hands were at everything. You can see so many different things that Walt directly influenced. The dark rides that he worked on, the castle that he helped design, even down to the rivers of America where you get to see the petrified tree that he gave his wife and then put in the park, because who wants that around your house? But you can see so many things that Walt influenced and did, and it just feels so much more Waltish, if that's a word. Walt Disney World feels much more corporate, if you will. Far more mass planning, areas that, even though it is so well themed, still feel kind of more generic, if you will. It's really hard to describe unless you've actually been there. But the atmosphere in Disneyland is different than at Walt Disney World. It just is. And it kind of comes back to Walt. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in spirits like that. But I would say if there was one, there is a spirit of Walt Disney that just kind of sits around Disneyland. And it just has such an impact and a role upon it. And it's something that you are not going to know, you're not going to realize really, unless you've been to both coasts and you can tell the difference. You can almost feel it in a way too if you go to Disneyland Paris. Disneyland Paris has a very different atmosphere than Florida. And that is because Disneyland Paris, while it's not Walt that designed it, there were a couple of Imagineers that were very hands-on, very detailed-oriented, and just had a lot more influence. Whereas Walt Disney World, it feels like it was built by committee. Disneyland Paris has a very personal touch to it as well, kind of like Disneyland in California does. There's just something about the Florida parks, as wonderful as they are, that they're just missing that one little thing you can't put your hand on, and that's Walt's personal touch, his hand on everything. So that's 8 reasons why Disneyland is so much better than Walt Disney World. I love the parks on both coasts. They're both awesome. But if you get a chance to visit one, go to California. So do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Did I miss a good point or two? I'd love to hear your feedback as well. Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to check the description for information about gear, fan pages, merchandise. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't as well. And thank you so much for hitting that like button and sharing. Thanks so much to my patrons too for your support. My patrons are the ones who helped get me out to Disneyland this last year. In fact, it was 2 of my patrons in particular that really stepped up and helped make that trip possible. So thank you to them. If you want to know more about Patreon and the perks that come to my patrons as a way of saying thank you for making trips and travel possible, check out the links below. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless. One thing you'll learn if you go to both Disney parks, no. This is one thing it's a walk. It doesn't mean, it's not. And number 8. Number 8? Yeah. Number 8. I can count. Really, I can. There were a couple of Imagineers. Check out the links below. The links below? Yeah, the links.